One of the points which people continue to make, which is actually the opposite of the truth, is, well, he hadn't played football in 10 years. And so, if you haven't played football in 10 years, why should you even get an opportunity? Listen, that part of it is a decent way of looking at it. Decent. It's not totally fair, but it is decent. Right? And because in truth, like the Tim Tebow hasn't played football in a decade is not terribly accurate. He hadn't played in a football game since 2012, but he's played in the NFL going back 5 or 6 years ago, right? But and it was off-season practice squad, Philadelphia Eagles, going back to 2015. Granted, that's 6 years ago. But did you watch him this weekend? Did you watch the missed blocks? It's embarrassing, right? So here's what happens is when he was still a player and it appeared that his quarterback days were numbered, you had people yelling out, why don't you switch positions, right? Why don't you switch positions? Why don't you have him go and play H-back or tight end instead of playing quarterback? Did you watch him try and block? Why don't guys sit out and then try and make a comeback? Call in a favor. It has happened, right? Like Phillip Rivers is the same way. Phillip Rivers, I know it happened last year, but he's been washed up for a couple years now. And Phillip Rivers has said, like, hey, I could be ready November, December. If somebody has an injury, I could pop in here. It's really hard for these guys to learn that they don't have it. And what you learn is, I think most players have a really healthy respect for the next generation. They know when they don't have it anymore. And the second you don't have it anymore, you're going to get embarrassed, which is exactly what's happened to Tim Tebow. It's not just that he hasn't played football in too long. It's not just that his better days are behind him. It's also that he's playing a position which he's completely unfamiliar with. And it takes more than a couple of mini camps and a training camp to learn how to play. I actually think more of Tim Tebow for going through with this than I do think less of him. Right? There are always going to be people who will try and convince you that there's something evil there. There's something illicit under the surface. And maybe there is. Maybe there's the ego of Tim Tebow thinking he can do something like this. Maybe there's the ego of Tim Tebow forcing his way because of his name, because of how popular he is, because of his relationship with his coach that he's getting that. But I look at it and I'm like, if you're willing to put yourself out there, most people are not. Even when you're singing karaoke at your local pub, you usually do so not just with auto-tune, but with the music and the words cranked way up. All of us, we'll sing in the shower when you have the shower drowning out so many of the parts of our singing voice which don't work. Will you sing a cappella? Will you sing in front of a room? Will you sing a cappella on stage on television? Of course you won't. Of course you won't. It's way too hard to do. And for years, people were yelling at Tim Tebow, switch position. And he was like, it's not what I am. It's not what I do. Now, finally, he decides to switch positions and people are laughing at him when he put himself out there. I kind of think it's brave. Look, is it time for us to bid adieu to Tim Tebow in the NFL world? Of course. He's more motivational speaker than he is player. But while you're clowning him for the missed blocks and you're trying to yell out, well, like he's taking somebody's opportunity, like relax, dude. There's 90 guys. They're cutting down to 53. He'll get cut soon enough. All of it depends upon your perspective. Trying to do something new in your mid-30s is really, really hard, especially when you've only been a star when you played football. I mean, think about that. While people think, well, he's popular at home, like, there's a whole generation of kids who don't know about Tim Tebow and the speech when he was at Florida, right? I mean, that was like a generation ago. They don't know that. They don't know that Tebow. All they know now is he's a guy who they think of as washed up, trying to play tight end in the NFL, and it's clearly not going to work. You're talking like 2008. It's 2021. College-age kids are like 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old. They don't remember Tim Tebow, the legend. This is the Tim Tebow, like, man, that's a bad look. But it happens in boxing. It happens in MMA. It happens in tennis. It happens in baseball. It happens in basketball. It happens in football. Guys try and make a comeback, and then you're like, you know what? It's too fast. It's too hard. And switching positions sounds really easy when you're in front of a microphone, but the reality of it is it ain't easy.